God makes all things good. Man meddles with them, and they become evil. That is the opening claim of Rousseau's treatise on education. Nature provides a biological blueprint for human growth, but human society immediately intervenes, forcing the young into rigid, artificial shapes. In the 18th century, this intervention started at birth. Infants were tightly swaddled in restrictive linens to prevent them from moving freely. The prevailing belief was that a baby's body would deform if left to its natural movements, so adults restricted their limbs to keep them safe. Physical confinement is followed by mental confinement. Adults bombard toddlers with moral lectures and complex rules long before they have the biological capacity to grasp them. When punished for violating a rule they cannot comprehend, they learn to associate authority with fear rather than justice. This cycle of confusion and punishment forces the child to navigate life as a series of maneuvers to appease an arbitrary master. In 1762, Rousseau proposed a total rejection of this system through the story of an imaginary pupil named Émile. To rescue Émile from the traps of society, Rousseau introduces the concept of negative education. If you look at a conventional educational timeline, the early years are packed with instruction and restriction. Rousseau wipes that clean. Negative education means the tutor does not teach truth or virtue to an infant. Instead, the tutor strictly shields the child from vice. Émile is given absolute physical freedom. He eats when he's hungry, sleeps when he's tired, and explores his environment without the pressure of a schedule. The earliest years of human life are entirely unsuited for acquiring adult knowledge. They exist to let the body grow strong, allowing the innate goodness of the child to take root before civilization can crush it. As Émile enters childhood, the years up to age 12, his vocabulary is kept intentionally small. While a conventional student is forced to recite historical dates and memorize abstract vocabulary, Émile is outside. He is estimating the weight of rocks, testing his balance on uneven ground, and developing an intense awareness of his physical environment. At the time, the philosopher John Locke argued that adults should reason with children. Rousseau rejected this entirely. A young child lacks the biological hardware for moral reasoning. If you try to argue a child into good behavior, you train them to be combative. They learn to nod along to your lectures, memorize what you want to hear, and disobey the moment you look away. Instead of lectures, discipline must come from what Rousseau called the rule of things. Authority should stem from physical necessity, not human command. The child learns limits because the physical world pushes back. If Émile throws a rock and breaks his bedroom window, his tutor doesn't yell at him. He doesn't deliver a sermon on property damage. He simply lets Émile sleep in a freezing room with a cold draft. A conventional child, terrified of a parent's unpredictable temper, will lie about breaking the window or blame someone else to escape punishment. Émile doesn't have anyone to lie to. Authentic personal responsibility takes root because the child learns to respect the immovable, neutral laws of physical reality rather than fearing the shifting moods of authority figures. Between the ages of 12 and 15, a unique biological window opens. For the first time in a child's life, their physical strength grows faster than their immediate survival needs. They have excess energy. This is the precise moment to introduce practical intellect. Formal academics are still banned. Rousseau allows only a single textbook in Émile's curriculum, Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. The total isolation of Crusoe's island provides a perfect mental model for the young adolescent. Émile is taught to view the world as if he were stranded alone. He evaluates every piece of information, every tool, and every natural resource based strictly on its practical utility. If it doesn't help him survive or build, he ignores it. This focus on strict utility requires Émile to learn a manual trade. By working with these hand planes and heavy wooden workbenches, Émile masters the mechanics of tools and the properties of his material. This physical labor serves as his direct bridge to understanding industry and the tangible value of human work. Place him next to a conventional student buried in the study of abstract philosophy and distant history. That student is acquiring words. Émile is acquiring knowledge. True intellectual independence requires mastering the physical environment with your own hands. By learning how things are actually made, the child avoids becoming blindly reliant on the opinions and technologies of others. As Émile approaches late adolescence, puberty hits. Rousseau describes this phase as a biological storm. The passions arrive, and the youth's focus violently shifts from immediate physical needs to complex social and emotional desires. Conventional education accelerates this crisis. It prematurely throws youths into adult society, exposing them to social hierarchies, competition, and sophisticated jargon before their minds are equipped to process it. This fuels vanity, anxiety, and a desperate need for approval. Rousseau's strategy relies entirely on delay. He keeps Émile isolated from high society just long enough for his first natural social emotion to take root: pity for the suffering of others. By seeing the poor and the sick before he sees the wealthy and the vain, Émile develops deep, authentic empathy. Only now, at the threshold of adulthood, does the tutor finally introduce history, religion, and complex morality. Émile finally possesses both the mature reasoning and the grounded empathy required to process these subjects safely. You cannot force morality onto a child through early lectures. It blossoms organically only when biological maturity perfectly aligns with a carefully protected empathetic heart. Émile is finally ready to enter the complexities of civilization. He finds his place in society and meets Sophie, his future wife, whose own education, distinct and traditional to Rousseau's complementary view of the sexes, makes her his ideal counterpart. We can now see the final contrast between the two educational paths. The conventionally educated adult emerges as a hollow puppet. He is completely dependent on public opinion, crippled by artificial desires for luxury, and adept at masking his deep vices with polite manners. Émile emerges as what Rousseau calls a savage made to live in cities. He participates in civilization, but he remains intellectually self-reliant, physically robust, and entirely immune to peer pressure. To create a truly free and exceptional adult, we have to practice radical patience. We must reject the rush to hit societal milestones, respect the strict timeline of human biology, and have the courage to let a child simply be a child.